Basin PBS presents the Midland Storytelling Festival from the Anwar Family Studio.
Good evening and welcome to the 29th Annual Midland Storytelling Festival. I'm Sue Roseberry and I'll be your host this evening. Storytelling has been woven into the fabric of our community since 1992. It has become a tradition, and the Storytelling Festival has become the kickoff to the holiday season, most likely because it is family-friendly entertainment that has something for everyone. Now tonight, we're going to be featuring 3 presentations from youth in our community. Our first young teller is Belen Zapata. She is 8 years old, attends Midland Online Academy, and her favorite subject is reading. When she grows up, she hopes to be an engineer like her dad. She enjoys drawing, reading to her younger siblings, and taking pictures, creating videos, and playing board games with her family. This is her second year participating in the Storytelling Festival. Let's listen.
Hi, my name is Belen Zapata, and I'm going to be telling you the story of the 3 Little Pigs and the New Neighbor by Annie Blackford. Once there were 3 little pigs. One lived in a house made of straws, and one lived in a house made of sticks, and one lived in a house made of bricks. One day, a new neighbor moved in next door to the straw house. "Oh no!" cried a little pig. "It's the big, bad wolf!" All day, the wolf worked hard sorting at his new home. "Now I'm hungry," he said, and prepared himself a tasty dinner. But he knocked over the pepper shaker. The pepper went everywhere. The wolf coughed, sneezed, achoo, and choked on all the pepper. It even got in his eyes. "I need water," he gasped, "but I haven't got any. Perhaps the little pig next door will help me." The wolf knocked on the first little pig's door. The pig was so scared he squealed, "Go away, there's nobody home." The wolf knocked harder, but the house was only made of straws, so his paw went right through. The little pig ran to the brother's house. "Help, let me in, the big bad wolf is after me," he squealed. "Oh no, there's nobody home," the wolf groaned. "Maybe the little pig next door will help me." The wolf knocked on the second little pig's door. The 2 little pigs quickly hid. "Let me in," the wolf groaned. "Maybe there's someone upstairs." So he went to climb up. But the wolf was heavy, and the house was only made of sticks. So he fell right through. The 2 little pigs ran to the brother's house. "Help, let me in, the big bad wolf is after me and trying to eat us up." "Oh dear, what a mess," the wolf groaned. "Perhaps the little pig next door will help me." The wolf knocked on the 3rd little pig's door. The pig said, "Go away, my house is made out of bricks and you'll never get in and eat us up." "But I don't want to eat you up. I only want some water." The pigs laughed, and they gave as much water as the wolf could drink, and plenty more. The moral of the story is, don't be so quick to judge. You might make a friend. Thank you.
I know you enjoyed that wonderful story. Our next young teller is McKinley Evans. McKinley is 10 years old and in the 5th grade. She's already a published author of a children's book entitled The Caterpillar's Big Day. And her short story, The Caterpillar's Nightmare, was published in the West Texas Legends and Lore anthology. In addition to reading and writing, McKinley enjoys acting, storytelling, singing, and ballet. She has been involved in the festival 3 years. McKinley has been dancing since the age of 3, and she has danced in the Nutcracker with Midland Festival Ballet for 5 years in a row. In fact, this year, she's in the cast for the Nutcracker film, which is going to be aired on Basin PBS. McKinley is a straight A student. She's active in her church and loves spending time with friends and her older brother, Jaden. She would like to become a labor and delivery nurse when she grows up. This is a three-peat for McKinley as a contest winner. McKinley, take it away.
Hi, I'm McKinley Evans, and I'll be telling the story, The Great Race, an adaptation of The Tortoise and the Hare by Sue Roseberry. Myrtle Turtle was always talked about for being the slowest animal in town, but she was just never in a hurry no matter where she went. On the other hand, though, Jackie Rabbit went through life like a shot, laughing at whoever would listen, think you can beat me in a race? Not. Well, one day, all the animals were gathered around, just talking and such, when Myrtle came ambling along. "Oh, brother," said Jackie Rabbit, "it's a disgrace to be the slowest animal in the universe, incapable of winning a race." Now, even though Myrtle was shy, she did not like Jackie Rabbit's tone. She kind of mumbled under her breath, "I wish you would leave me alone." Now that got Jackie Rabbit started. He was throwing taunts all over the place. He laughed and snickered a burtle and finally said, "How would you like to go against me in a race?" It got so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody wanted to know what Myrtle was going to say. Finally, after a few minutes of thinking, Myrtle finally said, "Okay." Said Monkey. "He'll run rings around you. Don't give him the satisfaction." "Hush up," said Zebra. "I'll take a piece of this action." Wagers were placed all that day, and Myrtle thought about stepping out, but she knew she had to stand up to Jackie Rabbit for saying things that were unkind. So the next morning, bright and early, Myrtle and Jackie Rabbit fell in line for what was promoted as the Great Race. In lane 1, we got Jackie Rabbit, the most favorite animal in town, and in lane 2, we got, of course, Myrtle Turtle. Let's get this thing started. Get ready, get set, go! Jackie Rabbit left Myrtle in the dust. But even though she was slow, she just kept moving along and singing her song. "I may not be the fastest one to ever run a race, but I'll get there eventually. Just keep a steady pace." Now, Jackie Rabbit had got so tired of running and bragging, but when it came time to actually run the race, he was pretty tuckered out. So he looked behind and didn't even see Myrtle, and up ahead saw a small tree and knew he had little time to catch some Z's. Now Myrtle just kept moving along and singing her song. "I may not be the fastest one to ever run a race, but I'll get there eventually. Just keep a steady pace." Now, Myrtle Turtle looked sort of in the corner of her eye and saw Jackie Rabbit, and by this time, he was stretched all the way out and had no notion that Myrtle just passed him by. After a few hours, Jackie Rabbit finally woke up. He yawned and scratched his face and finally said, "I think it's time for me to win this race." Now, when he looked up ahead, he saw something that shone up blew his mind. It was Myrtle Turtle. She was crossing the finish line. Now, all the animals kidded Jackie Rabbit for losing the race that day, and it was said that he stopped bragging so much. And Myrtle showed everybody that speed doesn't always win the race, 'cause you'll get there eventually. Just keep a steady pace. case. Thank you.
That was so great. Our last youth presentation comes from a pair of brothers, Cadence and Harper Ware. Cadence is in 8th grade at Abel Junior High, and he enjoys athletics and band. Harper's in the 5th grade at Washington STEM Academy. He enjoys sports, and he was also the spelling champion for his school on last year. Fellas?
I'm Cadence Ware.
And I'm Harper Ware. Today, we'll be telling you our version of an African folk tale, Bad Habits. Once upon a time, in Africa, monkey and rabbit were the best of friends. They spent their days together, feasting on the delights of the jungle. They got on very well, but each found one another to have one very annoying habit. Rabbit was forever twitching, looking from side to side as if somebody was coming, but no one was there.
Well, on the other hand, Monkey could not stop himself from scratching. He scratched his arms, his leg, his back, and his chest, and even his head. No sooner had he finished one area, well, he would start on another. The animal friends put up with one another until one day. My dear friend, could you stop scratching for 1 minute? You're making me itchy and I can't concentrate on my food when you're always at yourself like there's some terrible infestation taking place.
Well. Look who's talking. I was just wishing that you would stop twitching about. You're making me jumpy and I can't concentrate on my food when you're always looking as if somebody was about to pounce on us.
I can stop twitching anytime I want. I bet you can't stop scratching.
Oh, yes, I can. I bet I can stop longer than you.
Okay, let's have a contest. The loser will have to shade the winner with the banana leaf from the hot sun whenever we need to cross the meadow.
All right, you have a deal. I can't wait to start. I can stop scratching for a moment.
And I can stop twitching whenever I want.
Ready? The first to move loses the bet. Both sat under the gum tree, facing each other. Rabbit did not twitch.
And Monkey did not scratch.
Rabbit was so sure that somebody was about to pounce on him.
And Monkey felt sure that a band of fleas just fell from the tree and landed on his arms and his legs. Both sat still. They tried singing.
I got this.
No, I got this.
Deep breathing.
But the situation became unbearable until finally Monkey had an idea.
Hey, Rabbit, let's tell stories to pass the time.
I'm all ears.
Okay, I'll go first. One time, I got separated from my mother when I was just a little monkey. Man, terrible things happened to me. First, I got bonked on the head with a stick. Then, I tried to run away, but I ran into a hive's nest. Then, not only did they stab me on my chest, but my arms and my legs. Then, I tried to run away from that, and I tripped over a vine that nearly broke my leg. It was swelling up all over here.
Good story, but mine's even more amazing than yours. One night, my mom went on an errand, and she told me to keep watching my brothers and sisters. It was so dark that you couldn't even see the moon. I jumped at every jungle sound. First, I heard a strange cry on my right. Then, a strange cry over my left. Then, something fluttered from behind. Something fell from above. Then, something slithered on the ground. There.
Yeah. Good story. Almost as good as mine. You're almost as good as hiding your bad habits as I am.
Yeah, it seems that we don't want to stop our bad habits.
Yeah, you're right. I just don't feel right if I'm not scratching.
And I just don't feel right if I'm not twitching, making sure no one's there. If we're going to stay friends, we're probably going to have to put up with one another's bad habits.
Yeah, and we could take turns holding the banana leaf when we need to cross the meadow. And they did. Thank you.
Be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel to see presentations from all the other youth in our community. Now tonight, our first adult teller this evening is recognized internationally as a storyteller of time-honored tales that are mixed with comedic idioms and political puns that she delivers with a native Texas twang. She resides in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Would you join me in welcoming Barbara McBride Smith?
Samson was a strong man. Now, I bet I didn't need to tell you that because you know the story of Samson. Maybe you've read it in the Bible beginning in the 13th chapter of the book of Judges. Or maybe you remember hearing it when you were a kid. That's how I remember the story from Ms. Gertrude Gebhardt's 3rd grade Sunday school class. But there's one thing about Samson you may not have heard, and it's this. Samson was a chosen person. Before he was ever born, an angel of the Lord came down and told his mama 3 things. First of all, the angel said that she was going to have a baby, and it was going to be a really big baby. The second thing the angel told the mama was that she shouldn't be eating any junk food or drinking any strong drinks while she was pregnant with that baby. And the third thing the angel said was that the mama should never, ever let that baby have his hair cut. Not even when he grew up. Because you see, the secret of this boy's strength was going to be in his hair. And someday God was going to use that strength as an instrument against the enemies of Samson's people. And if he ever got his hair cut, then he would lose all of his strength for sure. Now, Samson's people were the Israelites, and they were miserable back in those days because, you see, they had been living under the rule of the Philistines for about 40 years. And the Philistines were awful, rotten, mean, egg-sucking dogs. They didn't care about anybody or anything. The Philistines would go around breaking stuff and making fun of fine art and tearing down rainforests and taking away old people's Social Security. If you know anybody like that today, you can call them a Philistine. Well, anyway, everything went down just the way that angel said that it would happen. That mama had that baby, and oh, he was a big baby. And she named him Samson, which translated from the Hebrew means man of the sun, or more commonly, in his case, doofus. Well, anyway, Samson turned into a really strong adolescent boy. And by the time he was an adolescent, well, that hair, it was all over the place because his mama had never let him get it cut. He would go down the street and that hair would be dragging along about 10 feet behind him. It'd be stretched out on both sides of him. People would see him coming down the street. Well, they would be terrified. They were going to be caught up in that hair and dragged to their death. And so they would just plaster themselves up against both sides of the street trying to avoid that hair. And whenever Samson went to a sporting event or a movie theater, nobody wanted to sit behind him for 4 or 5 rows because they were afraid they would touch his hair and incur his wrath. Besides that, who could see around that mess of hair? Now, Samson was real proud of his hair. He would go down the street and he would say things like, "I got muscles, I got class, touch my hair and I'll mow your grass." Well, the other kids in town, they didn't really like Samson very much. The truth is, they were jealous of him because he was bigger and stronger than they were. But they tried their best to keep up with him. They did their chin-ups, their push-ups, their sit-ups. They drank their milk. They ate their wild honey. They ate all their vegetables. They did it all, the whole enchilada. But they were no match for Samson. And to tell you the truth, the kids didn't really like him very much either. They wanted to call him Samson the Hairball, but they were afraid of him. And so instead they called him Samson the Magnificent. But they didn't really mean it. And you know, as Samson grew into manhood, the stories of his fabulous strength and his hairy deeds spread everywhere. They said that Samson could uproot trees with one hand and crush bricks with the other. They said one time Samson was walking down a road and a lion jumped out at him, attacked him, and Samson just took his fist and he stuck it right down that lion's throat, grabbed him by the tail from the inside, jerked him wrong side out, left the carcass lying there on the side of the road with a sign propped up against it that said, "Samson was here." Well, that's the background on Samson. And now it's time to ask this all-important question. Can a man with a lot of hair and not much sense find true happiness with an untrustworthy woman? And the answer is, I don't think so. Not when she's working for the Philistines. You see, Samson had a girlfriend, and her name was Delilah. Oh, he loved Delilah. She was beautiful. Not only that, but she could cook. Several nights a week, he would go over to Delilah's house. She would see him coming. She would throw open the door and she would say, "You like bread and butter. You like toast and jam. You like pizza with extra cheese, and you're my loving man." Well, he would go in her house and she would prepare him a gourmet meal. She'd have a big old pot of matzo ball soup. She'd have about 24 peanut butter and honey and bacon sandwiches. She'd have 5 bags of Doritos, 3 cans of bean dip, a gallon of Gatorade, a box of Krispy Kreme donuts with an extra large container of Cool Whip to go on top. Well, one night, before Samson got to Delilah's house, the 5 leaders of the Philistines got there first. And they said to Delilah, "We don't like Samson. Now, we want to get rid of him. We want to capture him, but he's too strong for us. So we want you to entice him. Find out the secret of his strength, and then we can capture him." And Delilah said, "Well, I don't know. Samson's a lot of man." And they said to her, "Here's a lot of money." And she said, "Yeah, I see what I can do." And so that night when Samson got over to Delilah's house, she began to play this not-so-clever game on the not-so-clever Samson. She called it the Samson game. He loved it because it was all about him. She said to him, "Oh, Samson, Samson, what is the secret of your great strength?" And he said dumb stuff to her, like, "Oh, you could tie me up with 7 new bowstrings and I'd be just as weak as a kitten." And so she did. She tied him up. And then to test him, she said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." "Whoa," said Samson. He popped off those bowstrings just like they were thread. Well, Delilah didn't give up. "Samson, Samson, what is the secret of your great strength?" And he said, "Oh, you could wrap me up with a couple of rolls of duct tape. That ought to do it." And so she did. And then to test him, she said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." "Whoa," said Samson. He popped off that duct tape just like it was a Band-Aid. Well, Delilah kept on serving, but she wasn't making any points. Pretty soon, she figured out she was going to have to try other measures. And so Delilah began to use a technique on Samson that women have been using on men for thousands of years. And men have been using on women since the beginning of time. And children have been using on their parents ever since children were invented. Delilah began to whine. "Oh, Samson, please, please tell me, what is the secret of your strength?" And Samson said, I can't, Delilah. I can't tell you now. Now just cut it out." "Oh, Samson, Samson, please, please, if you really love me down deep in your heart, without me having to bring it up first, you would tell." "Delilah, I said I can't. Now stop. Cut it out." "Oh, Samson." She kept that up for hours on end. And the Bible says, you can read it in the 16th chapter of the book of Judges, she vexed his soul to death. Finally, Samson just couldn't take it anymore. He said, "All right, Delilah, all right, just stop. I'll tell you the secret of my strength. It's in my hair." "In your hair?" "Yes, the secret of my strength is my hair. You see, Angel told my mama if I ever got my hair cut, then I would lose all my strength for sure." "Oh, well, Samson, how would you like to just take a little nap while I send out for a barber, a pizza?" And at that point, Samson acted like he had the brains of a jar of mayonnaise. He just stretched out on her lazy boy recliner. And pretty soon he was sawing logs. And Delilah did send out for a barber, one who made house calls. And he showed up at her house with his hedge clippers and his weed eater. And the two of them went after Samson's hair. They cut and they hacked, they cut and they hacked. And by the time the sun came up the next morning, Samson was bald as a grape. Well, when the barber went out the door, it slammed behind him and Samson woke up. He tried to get to his feet. He said, "Whoa, I feel lightheaded." And then he reached up and he touched his head and he said, "My hair! My hair! Delilah, what have you done with my hair?" And she said to him, "Oh, Samson, that's life. Hair today and gone tomorrow." And then, to test him, she said, "Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you." And this time, they were. the Philistines came running into the house and they grabbed Samson and they dragged him off to prison. And then to add injury to injury, they blinded him. And poor blind Samson was taken to a place called Gaza, where he was made to work in a mill grinding grain. And as he worked and the days went by, Samson would say to himself, "Oh, woe is me. I'm but a shadow of my former self." And as the days went by, Samson's hair began to grow. And Samson said to himself, "Oh, woe is me. I am but a 5 o'clock shadow of my former self." And as his hair returned, so did his strength. And for the first time in his life, Samson did something really smart. He kept his mouth shut. He didn't tell anybody that his strength was returning. He waited for just the right moment. And that moment came. It was the time of year when the Philistines were gathering at a large temple. It was the celebration to their god Dagon. And so in the middle of the celebration in this grand temple, they decided to bring old blind Samson into the middle and to make fun of him. Because you see, Philistines have a pitiful sense of humor. Well, they got old Samson out there and somebody put a half a grapefruit on his head. Oh, they slapped their knees and they laughed about that. They took that off and then they put a half a cantaloupe on top of his head. Oh, they slapped each other on the back and laughed about that. And then they took that off and they put a banana peel on top of his head. They went bananas laughing about that. Samson said, "This is garbage." Well, they got bored with old Samson, so they took him off the center of the stage and they went on with a little bit more entertainment, and he was standing over to the side all alone. And that was when Samson raised his face upwards and he said, "Hey, remember me? I'm Samson. Yeah, the one with all the hair. I know. I did a bad thing. But I need to ask a favor of you. Just one favor, that's all I ask. Just allow me to avenge myself for the loss of my eyes." And then Samson reached out and he grabbed hold of 2 marble pillars that supported that temple. And he began to push outward. And then he began to pull inward. And those pillars began to tremble and the roof of that temple began to crumble. And that entire temple began to fall inward. And Samson cried out, "Let me die like an old trooper." And he brought the house down. And all who were in that temple that day perished along with Samson. The Bible says that Samson killed more Philistines in his death than he did in his lifetime. So that's the way I heard the story from Miss Gertrude Gebhardt in 3rd grade. It wasn't a happy ending, and she knew that. We said to her, "But Miss Gebhardt, what's the moral of that story?" She said, "I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out." "Maybe when you're all grown up, you'll figure it out." Well, I am all grown up now. And I've been thinking about it. This is what I think. Samson and Delilah is a never-ending story. It just keeps happening. People are still destroying one another over politics, religion, and love.
Closing out our family fun night is Donald Davis of Ocracoke, North Carolina. Now, Donald has been featured at festivals throughout the world, sharing stories of growing up in a southern Appalachian mountain world with a family of colorful individuals that he introduces to us with such warmth in all of his stories. Would you join me tonight in welcoming Donald Davis?
Hello, I'm Donald Davis. Both of my parents grew up on farms during the Depression. So by the time my brother and I came along, even though my dad now had a job at the bank and my mother was now teaching at Hazelwood School, they did not want us to live in town. No, you see, the Depression might come back. So we lived just far enough out of town that we had a huge garden. In fact, we had two gardens. We had one garden that was nothing but beans and corn. And then we had a little double row of apple trees. And then we had another garden that had everything in it from asparagus to zucchini. I remember one time asking my daddy, I said, "Why do we grow zucchini? Because we don't eat the things." He said, "Son, we grow zucchini to protect our tomatoes." I said, "How does that work?" He said, "Well, we have beautiful tomatoes, and people are always coming along saying, 'Joe, could I have a tomato? Could you give me a tomato?' When you give them a tomato, give them 2 zucchinis to go with it, and they won't ask again." But late in the summer, my mother and daddy would be canning stuff from the garden, canning. I couldn't figure out why they called it canning when it was jarring. But they would put up enough food for us to live for 2 winters, and the next summer we'd even have to empty some from the year before so we could use those quart jars and fill them up all over again. We always had chickens. Every year we would order more chickens from the Sears Roebuck Farm and Ranch catalog. My dad had it planned. One year he would order Dominickers. Then the next year he would get Rhode Island Reds. Then the next year he would get Plymouth Rocks. That way he could always tell which of the chickens were the older ones. So when my mama would say, "Joe, I've got the water boiling on the stove. Go kill me a chicken. I'm going to cook it for supper." He'd say, "How do you want it cut up?" She'd say, "I'm going to fry it." He would go out the door, 20 minutes. Catch, chop, scald, pick, singe, gut, cut up, back in the door, ready for my mama to fry a really fresh chicken. The chickens would come in the mail, the new ones in the springtime. One night we'd be eating our supper and Mr. Bishop, the postmaster, would call. He'd say, Joe, the chickens have come. I've got everybody's chickens at the post office. I'm not going home tonight till y'all come get your chickens. I don't want dead chickens in the post office." And about 8 o'clock, we'd drive back into town. The lights were all on. We'd open the front door of the post office. The whole post office going, cheep, 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 cheep. We'd take those chickens home. They were in little flat boxes with little holes in the side so they could stick their heads out. They would send you about 15 for each dozen you ordered, so if some of them squashed each other to death in the mail, we'd still come out ahead. We'd pour those little baby chickens down into a big cardboard box in our kitchen floor. We would lower a 40-watt light bulb down in there for their mama. And then we'd give them some chicken feed and some water. And the first night, they'd turn the water over into the chicken feed and walk around in it and poo all night. And the next morning, it smelled good when you went in there for breakfast. They'd stay in that box in the kitchen until they were big enough to fly out of it. And then it was time for them to go outside and do their job, lay eggs, and eventually get eaten. We always had a pig. Now, I'd never heard the word recycle when I was a little boy. That word hadn't come around yet. But when the word recycle began to become a popular word, first thing I thought of was that pig. Because you see, the pig ate everything we did not eat. Then we ate the pig. One night we were having pork chops, and my daddy had just trimmed the fat off the side of his pork chop. He held that fat up on his fork and he said to my mom, he said, "Lucille, reckon how many times we've eaten these same pork chops?" We had a milk cow. For years, we had a big Jersey cow named Helen. My daddy said he did not name her Helen. She had that name when she came, and you just cannot change a cow's name. The thing was, our one neighbor next door, old Miss Bergen, her name was also Helen. Our pasture went up behind the Bergen's house. Miss Bergen, in the afternoon, would sit and rock out on her back porch, looking out over the mountains, right out over our cow pasture. My daddy would go out to milk, and if Helen was up there close to the Bergen's house, and if my mother was someplace where she could hear, because there wasn't any point in doing this if Mama didn't hear it, he would look at the cow. Now, Miss Bergen, she was what my daddy would describe as a right fleshy woman. She'd be rocking, and my daddy would look at that cow, and in a loud voice, he'd go, "Oh, Helen, Helen, baby, I'm ready, I'm ready. Come meet me in the barn." My mom said, "Joe, you stop talking like that right now. Miss Bergen thinks you are talking to her." My daddy'd say, "I can't help it if she doesn't know she's not a cow." Because, see, my daddy's hobby was annoying my mama. We had everything we needed. Everything to eat off of, a little house to live in. We even had a bathroom that had been made by closing in part of the back porch. The only thing we did not have was heat. That was the coldest house in the world. You didn't have to look outside to see if it had snowed in the wintertime. The wind would blow in the cracks around the windows. There'd be snow on the bedspread. Which meant in the wintertime, we lived in the kitchen. Because in the kitchen, my mother had this beautiful, I wish I had it today, beautiful big Monarch wood stove. We had a table there in the kitchen, a square wooden table. That's where we always ate. Everybody sat, where we'd been assigned in the book of Genesis. My daddy sat on the back of the table where he could in no way get out to help my mama. I sat with my back toward the end wall so nobody could sneak up behind me. I'm that way to this day. My little brother sat on the outside. He didn't know any better. And our mama had a place set at the end of the table next to the stove, but she never sat down. She stood there between the table and the stove. She'd have a pot holder in one hand, a big spoon in the other hand. "Everybody got what you need? Anybody need anything else?" My dad would say, "Lucille, sit down and eat. I ate while I was cooking. Everybody got what you need? Anybody need anything else? Lucille, sit down and eat. I'll eat when you all get finished." I don't think my mother ever sat down for a meal in her whole life. Well, that kitchen table, that square wooden kitchen table, that was for me and my brother Joe, our favorite place to play. I was about 8 years old. He was about 6 years old. And here was our favorite game. We'd go in the bedroom and we'd get a big old quilt. We'd bring it in the kitchen, spread over the table, let it hang down to the floor all the way around, and then we had a secret log cabin under there. Our second favorite game. We'd go in the bedroom, we'd get a big old quilt. We'd bring it in the kitchen, we'd spread over that table, let it hang down to the floor all the way around, and then we had a secret gold mine. Our third favorite game. We'd go in the bed and get a big old quilt. We were dumb. That's the only thing we could ever think of. Well, one day we were playing under that table, and we heard our mother leave the room and go into another part of the house. You know what that meant? It was safe to fight. We don't know what we were fighting about. We just been saving it up. I think our plan was to see if maybe we could kill each other one day before she got back and stopped us. But we were under that table going at it. We were pulling hair and gouging eyes and biting ear and scratching skin and kicking. And all of a sudden, one of us kicked and hit one of those wooden table legs. and the table leg went crack, and the whole table turned over in the floor, and I thought, ooh, we're in trouble. And I'm the oldest, so I'm responsible. So I went straight to my mama and told her, Mama, my little brother just broke a table. I tried to stop him every way I could. I tried to stop him, but he broke it anyway. Our mama came in the kitchen, and when she looked at that table, you cannot believe what she said. She said, at last, we can get a new table. I thought, well, why didn't you tell us that's what you wanted? We could have broken it any time you wanted us to. My dad got home from work, and we got in the car with him. We went back into town, and we went to a store that is still open in Waynesville, North Carolina, Massey Furniture Company. We went inside, and we met Mr. Francis Massey, and my dad said to my mom, he said, Lucille, you look all over this store, and you pick any table you would like. And while we're here, let's just go all the way and get chairs to match. And our mama looked and looked and looked and looked, and when she finally picked out what she wanted, Mr. Massey said, Miss Davis, you have chosen what we call a dinette set. Oh, it was beautiful. The table was not wooden. No, no, no. The top of the table was made out of what looked like slick gray Formica plastic marble. The corners of the table, were they square? No, the corners were round. And all around the edge, there was this little groovy, silvery band that ran all the way around the edge of the table. And the legs were made of silver pipes, 2 on each corner. They started together down at the floor, and as they came up, my daddy said they must have had a falling out because they separated and disappeared under the table. And the chairs matched the table. But the little pipes on the chairs came down by the back, out by the sides, down to the floor, round to the back. We could get in those chairs and get a grip on the side, and we could bounce all over the living room. We loved that new table. Well, not long after we got it, we were eating supper one night, and my mother was performing what we called food torture, forcing us to eat nasty, disgusting things because it's good for you. And I don't understand. You know, with all the good food we put up fresh from our own garden, why did she do this? We were being forced that night to eat canned from the store mixed peas and carrots. I despised peas and carrots. The peas, you know, they've been in the can so long, they're not even round anymore. They just kind of squat down and hang out on the sides. The little cubey carrots are so ashamed of what's happened to them, they try to suck in on the sides and their little corners turn black. And the whole mess is swimming around in this nasty, greasy, gray-green juice that runs straight to your bread and then gets everything else on the whole plate. I despised peas and carrots. My mother said, you have to eat your peas and carrots because if you don't eat enough carrots, you can't see in the dark. I thought, you don't let me stay up in the dark, lady. I don't need to see in the dark. She said, you have to eat your peas and carrots because, and I could see her mouth moving, but I knew the words were coming from the depression. Because, she said, we don't waste food. I thought, lady, this is not food. I'd eaten everything else, and now all that was left on my plate was peas and carrots. I'd lined those peas and carrots up right around the edge of that green plastic plate, right around the edge, because I thought if any of them wanted to jump overboard and kill themselves, I want them ready to go. I'd counted them about 3 or 4 times. I needed to know how many I had to deal with. 74 of those nasty little things. I was counting them one more time. Remember when you're about 8 years old and you're nervous and your hands jump all around all on their own? I was counting, but my hands were jumping around under the table because I didn't want my mother to see how nervous I was. And while my hands were jumping up under the table, they found something I didn't know there. They found the end of one of those pipes that made the table leg. And it was open on the end. And it was hollow in there. I thought you could put something in there. You could put peas and carrots in there. And the next time my mother turned her head, I gathered up those peas and carrots. I started popping them in there like loading an old muzzle loader. And 8 years old, my fingers were little, so I could push them on back in there till they started turning the corner, going all the way to the bottom. I put 74 in there that first time. After that, I loved peas and carrots. They were the most fun of anything we had. See, I could reach 2 table legs on this corner. I could reach 2 table legs on this corner. So I would divide the peas from the carrots like they were little armies, and they would have battles. And every time one got killed, it would go in a table leg. I fed the table legs when I was 8 years old, 9 years old. When I was 10 years old, one day when nobody was in the house, I had to go in there, pull out the chairs, turn the table around because I had totally filled up my side, had to start on the other side. I would still be doing that, but when I was 12, we moved to a new house. My Uncle Spencer was helping us move using his pickup truck, and one day he and my daddy were loading up the kitchen, and I was watching because I had an interest in there. All of a sudden, Uncle Spencer said to my dad, he said, "Joe, this table sure would fit in the truck a lot better if we pick it up and turn it over and take the legs off." I thought, no. But I couldn't say anything. I just had to watch. They picked up the table. Nothing happened. They turned it over. Nothing happened. They started letting it down toward the floor. Nothing happened. They got that table almost to the floor, and they let it go, kabump. That did it. Up inside those legs, something started going deedle-deedle-deedle-deedle-deedle-dee as years of dried up peas and carrots came running out on the upside-down tabletop. My Uncle Spencer didn't have any kids. He thought that's about the cutest thing he had ever seen. He'd say, look, Joe, bong, bong, bong. He'd hit on one of the table legs. Here comes some more. It's just like a slot machine. We won again. That's when my mama got there. And when she saw those peas and carrots, here came those words, "We don't waste food." She said, "Young man, you go get a clean container and put this perfectly good food in it, and when we get to our new house, we'll have something to eat." When we moved, in addition to our books and clothes and toys, we had 2 wide-mouthed quart canning jars full of antique peas and carrots. My mama kept them on the kitchen counter at our new house, and we'd go in there at supper time. She'd say, "Oh, what should we have tonight? Oh, maybe we'll have peas. Oh, no, let's save them for company." You want to know what finally happened? I'll give you some clues. First clue, the Methodist Church. Second clue, summer vacation Bible school for children. Third clue, arts and crafts. Our teacher told us we were going to do wonderful, beautiful mosaic artwork. We were going to glue things like macaroni and dried beans on boards and build pictures. But she said, we need beautiful pictures. So she said, when you children go home tonight, I want you to look all around your house and see what you can bring tomorrow to go in our... I didn't have to look anywhere. Next day, I started out with a whole big sack full of dried peas and carrots. They ended up in every piece of artwork, and everything was fine till the next Sunday when they invited the grown-ups to come see our work. That included my mama. When she saw our personal peas and carrots, it felt like she was sucking the air out of the room. Ooh, and then here came those words, "We don't waste." My daddy was laughing his head off. He said, "For once in your life, lighten up, Lucille. This is not food, it's art." And then my mama got tickled, and I did not even get in trouble. And do you know that picture hung on the wall in our kitchen for years, till some little insects came along that didn't know the difference between food and art, and they ate it. And now all that's left is the story. So I need to tell the story to keep the memory alive.
It's true. It's true. Time flies when you're having fun. Festival 2020 will continue with performances that you can watch on your own time via the festival YouTube channel. There are performances for everyone, a true example of family entertainment. But make sure that you're right back here on Basin PBS tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. for a 2-hour special event that's going to be featuring all of our amazing tellers. We want to thank the board of the Midland Storytelling Festival and all of our amazing sponsors for making tonight possible. Oh, pat yourself on the back and thank yourself for joining us. This would not be possible without all of you. Please follow us on Facebook and also go to our website, www.midlandstorytellingfestival.org, for all the details. If you want to know how to get involved, how to volunteer, how to donate, all of that information is there. We'll look forward to more wonderful times of telling stories with you in the upcoming future. Thanks for joining us, and good night.